right, here on the back side, we are, like I said, zooming all the way in on number 1. What's number 1 again? Muscle fiber, which is another name for a muscle cell. So we're zooming all the way in onto one of these muscle fibers, which means we are not looking at the macrostructure anymore. We're looking at the microstructure. So we're going to label this Unit 3, Lecture 1. Microstructure of what kind of muscle? Skeletal muscle, yeah. And when you're playing Pokemuscle, etc., you're looking at skeletal muscles for the most part, or actually only skeletal muscles. So, this is kind of like a Russian doll, right? You open a circle, there's another circle inside, another circle inside, another circle inside, and smaller and smaller and smaller. So we're going to start by labeling this entire piece as number 1, which is a muscle fiber, as we've defined on the last page. This whole thing shows one muscle fiber, and if you look up in the top left corner, it tries to show you that we're like way zoomed in on a skeletal muscle now. It's like one of these tiny, tiny pieces. And I'm just going to write in parentheses cell, even though we have it on the other side. So we're zooming into one of those. Now, inside of these, we're going to label, so how does this? Inside of one of these muscle fibers, we have little like proteins that make it up, and that's what all these other circles inside are. Now, they extend the whole length of the muscle fiber. They're just like muscle fibers where they're really, really, really long, and they extend the whole length. So you can see one popped out right here. I'm just going to go into this one right here and do a bracket around it like that. You can see that bracket, but it goes the entire length of the muscle fiber. So it's hard to show that, but it's like one of these whole tubes going the whole length. So I'm going to label it right here as number 2, and it's called a myofibril. So number 2 is a myofibril. Say that with me, myofibril. So myofibrils make up what? Muscle fibers. Myofibrils make up muscle fibers. All right. And if you look, if this is one myofibril, how many myofibrils are in this picture? Yeah, about 8, right? So we'll say about 8 in this picture. So again, if you're looking back, you can tell what they are. And they're long strands of protein. So if you go to the gym and you lift weights, you're supposed to eat protein after to help build your muscle, because our muscles are made of lots of protein, little myofibrils inside of each cell, filled with them. So this is a cell, right? So if you think of a normal cell in biology, like up on that wall, you have a nucleus. But in our case, we have many nucleus in this cell. And the nuclei are actually these like slug-like looking things. You can see a couple of them all throughout here, here, here. Those are all nuclei. So we'll label those in a bit, but just so you can see, those are nuclei. We have mitochondria in here. They're hard to tell, but they would be floating in this cytoplasm. We have endoplasmic reticulum in here. It's just very different look than a normal cell, but all it is a cell. And this is unique to muscle fibers, is these myofibrils, which take up most of the cell. Again, it's just another organelle inside a normal cell. And so inside these myofibrils, if you look here, we have these little lines that they pull out to show you that there's more in it than just that one structure. And these little guys are going to be labeled number 3. And so we have littler proteins or smaller proteins that make up the myofibril as a whole. So this whole thing's a myofibril, and then these dots inside of it are actin and myosin proteins. Perfect. Okay. So these are actin and myosin proteins. So number 1 is pointing to the whole what? Muscle fiber. Number 2 is the what? Myofibrils that make it up. And the myofibrils are made up of what 2 proteins? Actin and myosin. And so what I'm going to do under actin and myosin proteins is write, and we'll finish up with this for today, is see drawing below. So I'm going to go down to like, I'm going to leave a pretty good space and maybe the bottom third of my paper. So like right around here. So I don't know. I can zoom all the way up, but I didn't leave myself that much space up top. We're going to have to add up to number 9. So maybe I should have left more, but maybe a little less space than that at the bottom. We're going to go down here and we'll do our little asterisk for our drawing down here. So we're going to draw actin and myosin. What does skeletal muscle have that also cardiac muscle has again? Striations. So these little proteins are what make the striation look when you look at a skeletal muscle tissue. So we're going to draw those down below. So actin and myosin is what we're drawing down here. So we're zooming in on those. And we're going to start. Now, this is difficult to explain, but use the lines of the paper to help you. And you want to start by doing a zigzag. We'll go 5 lines down. So the points, if you notice, are in the middle of the lines. It's hard to explain, but try and copy that exactly. So you're just going to go 5 lines down, triangle, 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 triangle. And then you want to mirror that. So I'm going to leave a little space in between, and then I want to have like the points of my triangles facing each other. So I'm mirroring that. Like that. And I didn't mean for it to go in closer at the bottom. It should be like kind of evenly across. So then once you have that, you're going to add from each tip of the triangles a line that goes not touching but almost all the way across. So if you can see, like that. And once you master one, I'm going to do another mirror image. So I'm going to draw the same thing again, but over here. And this is my thin filament. Does anyone remember? Oh, messed that one up. This is my thin filament. Does anyone remember from the lecture notes what the thin filament is, actin or myosin? Yeah, it's actin. So I think actin, thin, they both have that T. Oh, the thick does too. But I don't know. Actin and thin, they seem to rhyme. Actin, thin, actin, thin. And then myosin is the thick guy in the middle. So these are our actin. All these black lines are pieces of actin or our thin filaments. I wrote filaments really bad, but actin or thin filaments. And then in between, I'm going to take a red pen, but you can do it in pencil if that's all you have out right now. It doesn't matter, and go back and highlight it or something later. But we're going to draw our myosin. So myosin, you want to think myosin in the middle. And that's going to go right here, bless you, in the center of these structures. So if actin's the thin filament, then myosin is the thick filament. What letter in the alphabet do these squiggly lines look like? A Z, yeah, so they're actually called the Z lines. And the Z lines are what form the striations that we see when we look at a skeletal muscle cell. So once you have that last piece, you're good. And we'll finish these ones up tomorrow. But again, start studying what you know so far. We have a little bit to add to it, and then we'll use tomorrow to really review this stuff before moving on. So lecture 2 will be due on Thursday, and it will be a video lecture. So I'll post that tomorrow. So don't worry about anything but just studying this stuff tonight.